I'm just going to say it. Most of you are driving your retirement into the ground every single morning. You pull out of your driveway in a $70,000 piece of metal that loses value faster than a leaked secret, and you wonder why you're stressed about money. You think you're successful because you can afford the $800 monthly payment, but you're actually committing financial slow-motion suicide. You are trading your future freedom for the smell of new leather and a shiny badge on your grill that nobody, and I mean nobody, actually cares about as much as you think they do. My name is John, and I spend way too much time thinking about the psychology of consumer spending and the brutal math of car debt. If you're someone who feels like you're working 40 hours a week just to keep a shiny SUV in the driveway while your savings account looks like a desert, make sure to hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up if this helps you out. Here's the thing. The average new car payment in the United States has soared past $700, and for many of you in that good salary bracket, the folks making $80,000, $100,000, or even $150,000, it's well over $800. You've been told by society, by your parents, and certainly by the guy at the dealership that everyone has a car payment. They tell you it's just a part of life, like paying for groceries or electricity. That is a lie. It is a manufactured cultural norm designed to keep you on a treadmill until you're 65 years old and too tired to enjoy the money you finally saved. Most people don't realize that a car is not an asset. We need to define our terms here because this is where the middle class gets tripped up. An asset is something that puts money into your pocket. A rental property is an asset. A dividend-paying stock is an asset. A car is a rapidly depreciating appliance. It's a toaster on wheels that sucks money out of your pocket every single hour you own it. The moment you drive that new-to-you luxury vehicle off the lot, you lose 10 to 20% of its value. You literally threw $10,000 into the wind because you wanted the new car smell and the satisfaction of being the first person to sit in those seats. Let's look at the real-world math, and this is where it gets really interesting. If you were paying $800 a month for a car and you do that for 5 years, which is a 60-month loan, you have paid $48,000 in principal alone. But here is the kicker. Almost nobody is getting 0% financing anymore. When you add in the interest, because most of you are signing 6 or even 7-year loans at 7, 8, or 9% interest, you're actually paying closer to $55,000 or even $60,000 for a car that will be worth maybe $22,000 when the loan is finally done. You are paying double the value of the vehicle just for the privilege of driving it while it rots. But that's not even the mistake I'm talking about. The real mistake is the opportunity cost. This is the concept that separates the wealthy from the rich-looking. If you took that same $800 a month, the money you were handing over to a billionaire car manufacturer, and you put it into a low-cost index fund instead, do you know what that would be worth over 30 years? Let's do the math slow so it sinks in. At a standard 7% return, which is the historical average of the stock market after inflation, that $800 a month turns into $976,000. Look at me. You are trading $1 million of future freedom for a heated steering wheel and a backup camera. You're choosing to work an extra 10 years of your life just so you can look cool at the red light next to people who aren't even looking at you. They are too busy looking at their own phones or worrying about their own car payments to notice yours. Now, you might be thinking, but John, I'm a professional. I'm a lawyer, I'm an engineer, I'm a manager. I can't show up to a client meeting in a beat-up 1998 sedan. Look, I'm not telling you to drive a rusted-out bucket with no brakes and a coat hanger for an antenna, but there is a massive ego-driven gap between reliable transportation and a luxury status symbol that costs more than a small apartment in the Midwest. Most of you are using reliability as a mask of vanity. You don't need a $60,000 truck to get to work safely. You want the $60,000 truck because it makes you feel like you've arrived. This is where the psychology of the middle-class trap really starts to bite. We've been conditioned to believe that our car is a reflection of our professional worth. We think if we pull up to the office in a 10-year-old Toyota, our boss won't promote us because they'll think we lack ambition. Or we think our clients won't trust our advice because we don't look successful. This is what most people don't realize. The truly wealthy people I know, the ones with $5, $10, or $20 million in the bank, are often the ones driving the 5-year-old Honda or the 10-year-old Ford F-150. They aren't trying to prove anything to anyone because they actually have the money. They aren't trying to prove anything to anyone. The person in the $80,000 leased Mercedes, they are often the ones stressed about a $500 emergency. We are entering a debt-death spiral in this country, where people are rolling over negative equity from one car loan into the next. They owe $30,000 on a car that's worth $20,000, so they trade it in for a newer one, and the dealership, those helpful folks, just tack that $10,000 loss onto the new loan. Suddenly, you're paying for $70,000 worth of debt on a $50,000 car. It is a mathematical house of cards, and it is the primary reason why families making six figures feel like they are drowning. Now, if you think the loss of nearly $1 million in investment gains is a bitter pill to swallow, wait until we look at the math they hide in the fine print at the dealership. This is where it gets really interesting, and honestly, a little sickening when you realize how much of your life is being siphoned off by the banking system. When you walk onto a car lot, the salesman is trained to do one thing: get you to stop thinking about the price and start thinking about the payment. That famous question, what monthly payment are you looking for? That right there, that is the ultimate red flag. The second you answer that question, you have lost the negotiation. When you focus solely on the payment, the dealership can stretch your loan out to 72, 80, or even 96 months just to make that $800 fit your budget. They are selling you a life sentence, and you're smiling while you sign the papers. We are currently seeing auto loan interest rates for good credit. I'm talking about people with scores in the 700s, hovering around 7 to 9%. If you are paying $800 over a 72-month term, you aren't just paying for the car. You are paying over $12,480 in interest alone. Think about that. That is $12,000 of your hard-earned labor, hundreds of hours spent away from your family, sitting in meetings, dealing with stress, given directly to a bank for the privilege of borrowing money for an appliance that is worth less every single day you own it. You are literally working for free for several months of your life just to pay the interest on a depreciating hunk of plastic and steel. But the $800 mistake isn't just the payment, it's the hidden bleed. Most people who buy these status vehicles, the BMWs, the Audis, the high-trim Ford King Ranches, forget about what I call the luxury tax that follows the car home. First, let's talk about insurance. A $60,000 SUV costs significantly more to insure than a $30,000 used sedan. Because the vehicle is worth more, the comprehensive and collision premiums skyrocket. For most high-income earners, that's an extra $75 to $150 a month that never shows up in the payment conversation at the dealership. Then there's the maintenance. If you buy a luxury European car, you aren't getting a $40 oil change at the local shop. You're looking at a $250 service at the dealership because the car requires specialized synthetic oils and proprietary filters. Those high-performance 22-inch tires, they don't last as long as standard tires, and they cost $400 a piece to replace. That is $1,600 every 2 years just to keep the car touching the pavement. And don't even get me started on the fuel. Many of these good salary cars have high compression engines that require 91 or 93 octane premium gasoline. At today's prices, if you drive 15,000 miles a year, you're spending an extra $60 to $80 a month just to keep the engine from knocking. When you add the payment, the insurance hike, the premium fuel, and the luxury maintenance schedule together, your $800 car is actually costing you closer to $1,250 a month. That is $15,000 a year. If you make $100,000 a year after taxes, you are spending nearly 25% of your entire take-home life on a vehicle. Now, you might be thinking, John, I work 60 hours a week. I have a high-stress job. I deserve a sanctuary on my commute. I deserve to drive something that makes me feel good. Look, I get it. I really do. I've been there. But here is the psychological driver you need to understand, and this is where it gets really dangerous: the hedonic treadmill. Human beings are evolutionarily wired to adapt to their surroundings. When you first drive that car off the lot, the dopamine hit is incredible. You love the way the ambient lighting looks at night. You love the way the engine purrs. You feel like a boss. But the research is clear. Within 3 to 6 months, that high completely disappears. That luxury car just becomes the car. It becomes the place where you spill your coffee and where your kids drop goldfish crackers in the seats. The novelty fades, but the $800 weight on your chest remains for the next half-decade. We are engaging in something called consumer consumption. We are buying things not for their utility, but to signal to the rest of the tribe that we are successful and fit for the environment.
But here's the irony. Spending so much money trying to look successful to people you don't even like that you are actually preventing yourself from ever being wealthy. There's a term in economics called a Veblen Good. It's a product where the demand actually increases as the price goes up because it's a status symbol. For the American middle class, the luxury SUV has become the ultimate Veblen Good. We want it because it's expensive. We want the neighbors to know we can afford the $800 tier of life. But while you're signaling wealth to the neighborhood, your actual net worth is cratering. Let's compare two coworkers. Both make $120,000 a year. Person A drives the $80,000 luxury truck with the $800 payment. They feel powerful. Person B drives a 6-year-old Lexus they bought in cash for $22,000. They look average. But at the end of every single month, Person B has $1,200 in extra margin,
while Person A is staying up at night wondering if the upcoming merger at work means they'll be laid off and lose the truck. Person B is sleeping like a baby. Why? Because Person B has $50,000 in a high-yield savings account that Person A's car payment literally ate. This is what most people don't realize. True wealth is the things you don't see. It's the money that isn't spent. It's the freedom to walk away from a toxic boss or a soul-crushing job because you don't have a death pledge to a car company. So, how do we fix this without living like a hermit or driving a car that breaks down every time it rains? How do you go from being a high-income broke person to someone who actually owns their time? It starts with a radical, uncomfortable shift in how you view affordability. Most people think the phrase, "I can afford it," means I have enough in my checking account on the first of the month to cover the payment. From now on, that thought process is dead. If you want to actually build wealth, not just look like you have it, you need to follow a strict mathematical framework. I call it the 24-10 rule. First, you put 20% down. No more of this zero down, sign and drive nonsense that leaves you underwater the second you hit the gas. If you don't have the discipline to save 20% of the purchase price, you have no business buying the car. Second, you finance for no more than 4 years. If you need a 6, 7, or 8-year loan to make the monthly payment fit into your life, you are buying a car you cannot afford. You are using the bank's time to subsidize your vanity. Third, and this is the non-negotiable one, your total car costs, that means the payment, the insurance, the fuel, and the maintenance must be less than 10% of your monthly take-home pay. Let's do the math on that for a good salary. If you make $100,000 a year, your take-home pay is likely around $6,000 a month, depending on your state. 10% of that is $600, not $800, not $1,200, $600. That includes your insurance. That includes the gas. I know what some of you are thinking. Frustrated. John, in this market, $600 doesn't buy a luxury SUV. It barely buys a used sedan. Exactly. That's the point. It's a reality check. If the math says you can only afford a $22,000 used Toyota, but your ego wants the $60,000 Audi, then your ego is the primary reason you are struggling to build a net worth. You are prioritizing the image of success over the math of success. Here is what you do starting today if you are currently trapped in an $800 payment. I want you to look at your exit strategy. Most people think they are stuck because they signed a contract. You aren't. Go to a site like Kelley Blue Book or Edmunds and find the private party value of your car. Then call your lender and get your 13-day payoff amount. If you have equity, meaning the car is worth more than the loan, sell it immediately. Take the profit, buy a reliable 5-year-old vehicle in cash, and stop the bleeding. If you are underwater, meaning you owe more than it's worth, you need to go on a financial war footing. Cut the streaming services, stop the steak dinners, and pour every extra cent into that loan until you can sell the car and break even. Yes, your neighbors might think you're having money troubles because you don't have the shiny new toy in the driveway anymore. Let them think that. Let them judge you from their front porch while they're sitting on a mountain of debt. While they're stressing over their next $800 rent payment to the bank, you will be quietly depositing that extra money into your brokerage account.
In the next video, I'll show you why your primary residence might be keeping you house rich and cash poor, and how the American dream of homeownership has become a financial cage for anyone earning a good salary. This new video in our series will be uploaded soon, so stay tuned and make sure you don't miss it.